Story 3: The Wrong Summit. The mountain should have had a name. That's what bothered me most looking back. Every peak in the Sierra Nevada has a name, official or unofficial, on maps or just in local. But when I asked the old man at the gear shop in Bishop about the mountain I'd spotted on the satellite map, he just shrugged. Don't know it, he said, not meeting my eyes. Stick to the established trails. I should have listened. My name's Sienna and I was a peakback. Summiting mountains was my thing. I had 217 peaks under my belt, including 3 of the 5 tallest in California. I knew the wilderness. I knew how to be safe. But I'd never seen a mountain that wasn't on any map. I'd found it while planning routes for the season, a sharp, distinctive peak visible in satellite imagery but absent from USC's maps, trail guides, and every hiking forum I checked. Approximately 11,300 feet. Remote, surrounded by rugged terrain, but accessible from a spur valley off the John Muir Trail. A ghost mountain, I had to climb it. The approach took 2 days. I left the JMT at dawn on day 3, navigating cross-country through lodgepole pine and granite boulder fields. The peak rose before me, stark and beautiful against the achingly blue sky. By noon, I was making good progress up the south slope, scrambling over talus and following what looked like a faint U-trail through the scree. That's when I saw the first boot. It was wedged between 2 rocks halfway up the slope, a hiking boot maybe 10 years old, weathered but intact, just one boot, no sign of its partner or owner. I photographed it, marked the GPS coordinates, and kept climbing. Probably someone had lost it years ago. The mountains were full of lost gear. The second boot appeared 20 minutes later. Different brand, different size, sitting upright on a flat rock like it had been carefully placed there. Then a third and a fourth. All different, all arranged at intervals up the slope, like breadcrumbs leading to the summit. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I stopped to check my satellite communicator. Signal was weak but present. I could bail now, send an SOS if needed. But the summit was so close, maybe 400 feet of elevation gain, an hour tops. I kept climbing. The boots continued. I counted 18 of them, scattered up the mountainside in an irregular line. Some were ancient, leather-cracked and faded. Others looked new, bright colors barely weathered. Near the top of the scree field, the terrain changed. The rocks became smoother, almost polished, and I noticed something that made me stop dead. Scratches. The boulders were covered in scratches, long, deep gouges in the granite, as if something with metal claws had scraped down the mountain. The scratches all pointed downward, away from the summit. Like something had tried to climb down in a panic. My hands started shaking. I told myself it was the altitude, the exertion, but I knew better. I should have turned back. But I was so close. The summit ridge was right there, just 100 feet above. I could see sky beyond it, that perfect blue that meant I'd reach the top. I climbed the final pitch, using the scratches as handholds where the rock was too smooth. And I stood on the summit. The view should have been spectacular. Should have shown me the Sierra Nevada stretching in all directions, jagged peaks and crystalline lakes and endless wilderness. Instead, I saw the camp. It was just below the summit on the north side, hidden in a small basin. 6 tents, brightly colored, arranged in a neat circle around a cold fire pit. Backpacks and gear scattered around like people were still using the site. But something was wrong. The tents were old, not vintage old, wrong old. The fabrics had faded in strange patterns and the designs looked like they were from different eras. One tent was clearly from the 1970s, another might have been from the 1990s, and one looked brand new. Worse, the north side of the mountain, the side where the camp sat, shouldn't exist. According to my maps, the north face was a sheer cliff dropping 1,000 feet. But I was looking at a gentle slope, leading down to a valley that my satellite images hadn't shown. A valley full of trees that shouldn't grow at this elevation. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed strangely, bouncing back with a quality that made it sound like someone else was speaking. No response from the camp. I started down toward the tents, my boots crunching on loose rock. The temperature dropped noticeably as I descended, not the normal alpine chill, but something deeper, like I was walking into a refrigerator. The first tent I reached had a name written on it in faded marker, David Chen, 1982. 1982? I unzipped the tent with trembling hands. Inside was a sleeping bag, a camp stove, and a journal. The journal entries started normal excitement about reaching the summit. Notes on the route then deteriorated into something that made my blood run cold. Day 2 weather is strange. The sun hasn't moved since I reached the summit. It's been stuck at noon for 16 hours. Day 3 I tried to climb down the south face. The way I came up. But the rocks won't hold, every handhold crumbles. I fell twice. The scratches on the boulders I made those, everyone who came before me made those, trying to leave. Day 4 there are others in the camp. I can hear them at night moving between tents, but when I look I only see my own tent. Where is everyone? Day 5 the sun is still at noon. I'm running out of food. The valley below looks green and safe. I'm going to try to descend that way. Day 6 I made it to the tree line. The trees look normal from above, but up close they're wrong. The bark moves, breathing. I ran back to camp. Better to starve on the summit than go down there. Day 12 I haven't eaten in 3 days. The sun hasn't moved. I can hear voices now calling my name from the valley. They sound like my mother. My mother has been dead for 5 years. The final entry was just, I'm going down, I have to, I'm sorry. The journal ended there. I checked the other tents, finding similar stories. 7 different hikers spanning from 1978 to 2019. All had summited the unnamed peak. All had found themselves trapped by the unchanging sun and the impassable south face. All had eventually descended into the valley. None had returned. I looked up at the sky. The sun hung directly overhead, had been directly overhead when I summited an hour ago. I checked my watch. 12:07 p.m. Same as when I'd started climbing the final pitch. The second hand was moving, but something felt wrong about its movement. Too smooth, like it was looping the same second over and over. I grabbed my satellite communicator. The screen showed no signal, even though I'd had reception on the way up. Okay, don't panic, Thinky. I had food for 4 days, water for 2 if I rationed. I just needed to descend the south face the way I'd come. I hiked back to the summit ridge and looked down. The south face I'd climbed, the one with the scratches, and the line of boots was gone. In its place was a vertical wall of smooth, glassy rock, unclimbable, as if the mountain had sealed itself. My breathing accelerated. I forced myself to calm down, to think rationally. This was impossible. Mountains didn't change. I was hallucinating, altitude sickness maybe, or... Beautiful view, isn't it? I spun around. A man stood near the fire pit, tall, gaunt, wearing a bright yellow jacket that looked expensive. He hadn't been there a moment ago. Who are you? I stammered. Nobody anymore, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I was Matthew Rodriguez, summited in 2019. Took me 3 weeks to accept what this place is. What is this place? A collector. He walked closer, and I noticed his feet didn't quite touch the ground. Not floating exactly, but not fully present either. The mountain collects peaks baggers. People who climb for the list, for the achievement. It shows us what's at the top. I don't understand. We spend our lives collecting summits like trophies. Never satisfied. Always needing the next peak, the next achievement. This mountain is the final peak. The one that completes the collection. His smile widened, grotesque. By collecting us. I backed away, that's insane. Look at the sun. I didn't want to, but I couldn't help it. I looked up at the unchanging sun, and this time I really saw it. It wasn't the sun. It was an opening. A hole in the sky, perfectly circular, through which light poured. And at the edges I could see movement. Things crawling around the rim. Things with too many legs. The valley is the descent, Matthew said. We all go down eventually. When the hunger gets too bad, or the loneliness, or just the need to move to keep hiking. That's what we do, right? We hike. We can't stop hiking. I'm not going down there. Then you'll stay here. With us. In the camp. We're good company, all of us. We talk about trails we've hiked, peaks we've summited. It's all we have left. He gestured to the empty camp. The others are resting in their tents. Waiting for night. It doesn't get dark, the sun. Not that sun. He pointed down at the valley. The valley has its own day and night. When darkness comes there, we can see them. Walking between the trees. Everyone who descended. Still hiking. They'll hike forever. I could see movement now at the edge of the tree line far below. Figures moving between the trunks, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. I'm leaving, I said. I'll find another way down. There is no other way. The mountain only has two directions now, summit and valley. You can stay at the top or you can descend. Those are your choices. I ran. I didn't care where, just away from Matthew and his impossible smile and the wrongness of the valley. I scrambled across the summit ridge, searching for any break in the cliffs, any possible descent. But Matthew was right. Every direction except the valley led to sheer walls or crumbling rock that disintegrated at the slightest touch. I tried my communicator again. My phone, my GPS, all dead or frozen or showing impossible data. The scratches made sense now. Everyone who came before me had tried the same thing, desperately clawing at the south face, trying to find purchase, trying to climb down to the real world. All had failed. I returned to the camp as the light began to change. Not dimming the sun, that wasn't the sun, stayed fixed, but something shifted in quality, like a filter being placed over reality. Matthew was sitting by the fire pit with four others. They turned to look at me with expressions of sad understanding. I lasted 2 days before I accepted it. A woman said, "You're doing better than most." "I'm not staying," I said. "I'm not hiking into that valley." "Your choice," Matthew said. "But you'll need to eat. And drink. We found out the hard way you can't die here. You can just get hungry enough that the valley starts to look welcoming." I retreated to an empty tent and tried to think. There had to be something I was missing, some way to break the mountain's hold. I pulled out my journal and started writing, documenting everything. If I couldn't escape, maybe I could warn others. Maybe someone would find this in. A thought struck me. The boots, the line of boots leading up the south face. They were a warning. Someone before me had placed them there, trying to tell future climbers to turn back. But I hadn't turned back. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the mountain only trapped those who ignored the warnings, those who pushed forward despite clear signs to stop. I thought about the old man at the gear shop. Don't know it, stick to the established trails. He'd known, he'd tried to warn me in his way. The mountain was a test, and I'd failed by summiting. But maybe there was still a way to pass. I left the tent and walked to the summit ridge. Matthew and the others watched but didn't follow. At the highest point, I looked down at the valley with its breathing trees and endlessly hiking dead. Then I looked at the impossible sun. "I give up," I said aloud. "You win. I don't want this summit. I don't want to complete my list. I just want to go home." Nothing happened. "Please," I said, and I meant it. "I'll never chase another peak. I'll stay on established trails. I'll stop treating mountains like checkboxes. Just let me leave." The sun flickered. Just once, a brief strobe of light and shadow. And suddenly I was falling. Not off the mountain, through it. Like the rock had turned to water and I was sinking through solid stone. I tumbled through darkness, through cold, through spaces that had no geometry. I hit solid ground hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on talus 100 feet below the summit ridge. The real summit ridge. The sun was setting, actually setting, moving toward the horizon like it was supposed to. I checked my communicator, signal, full signal. I scrambled down the mountain, not caring about technique or safety, just desperate to get away. The boots were gone. The scratches were gone. Everything was normal rock and scree and alpine vegetation. I reached my camp at the tree line as darkness fell. I packed my headlamp and hiked through the night, not stopping until I regained the John Muir Trail. 3 days later, I reached the trailhead. My car was there, dusty but intact. I drove straight to Bishop, to the gear shop. The old man was at the counter. "You came back," he said quietly. "Most don't." "What was that mountain?" I demanded. "Don't know its name," he said, still not meeting my eyes. "It's not on maps because it's not always there. Shows up in satellite images sometimes, calls to a certain kind of hiker. The kind who can't stop collecting." "How did I get out?" "You tell me." I thought about it. I gave up. I stopped wanting the summit. He nodded slowly. "That's what it takes. The mountain keeps the ones who can't let go. The ones who need the achievement more than they need to live. You let go. So it let you leave." I haven't climbed a mountain since. I probably never will. But sometimes late at night I check those satellite images, and the mountain is still there, just waiting, unchanging. And I wonder how many climbers are standing on that summit right now, staring at an unchanging sun, trying to decide whether to stay at the top or descend into the valley. How many are still hiking, adding that impossible peak to their collection, not knowing the collection has added them instead? If you're a peak bagger, if you chase summits, if you're reading this, some mountains don't want to be climbed. and some achievements cost more than you can imagine to obtain. Story 4: The Hiker Who Wasn't There. The search party found me on day 8. I was delirious, dehydrated, hypothermic, sitting in a cave 3 miles from where I'd been reported missing. According to the GPS data from my watch, I'd hiked 72 miles in those 8 days. Impossible given the terrain and my condition. But the rangers were just relieved I was alive. I didn't tell them about Marcus. My name is Lauren, and I went missing in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Solo day hike on the Presidential Traverse, a long ridge walk connecting multiple peaks. I'm an experienced hiker, 31 years old, fit and prepared. Everything went wrong at mile 4. I just summited Mount Madison when the weather turned. The forecast had called for clear skies, but New Hampshire weather is treacherous. Fog rolled in within minutes, dense and disorienting. Visibility dropped to less than 20 feet. I knew the procedure: follow the trail markers, take my time, don't panic. The trail was well marked with cairns and paint blazes. But when I started down from the summit, I couldn't find the trail. I searched for 30 minutes, visibility getting worse. The fog wasn't normal, it had a thickness to it, a pressure like walking through cotton. My headlamp beam barely penetrated 5 feet. That's when I heard his voice. "Lauren, is that you?" A figure emerged from the fog, a man about 40 wearing a red jacket and gray pack. He had a kind face, worried eyes. "Thank God," I breathed. "I lost the trail, this fog." "Tell me about it," he said with a relieved smile. "I've been wandering for an hour. Name's Marcus." He extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, warm, real. "We should stick together," he said. "Two heads better than one. I've got GPS." He pulled out his phone, frowned at the screen. "That's weird. It's showing us in the right location, but the trail overlay isn't loading. You have signal." I checked mine, no bars. But the GPS showed our position. We were about 100 yards east of the trail. Easy fix. "This way," Marcus said confidently. We hiked together through the fog. Marcus was chatty, which helped calm my nerves. He talked about his job. Software engineer. His family. Wife and 2 kids. His hiking experience. 10 years mostly in the Whites. But we didn't find the trail. After an hour of hiking westward, we should have hit it. Should have seen cairns or paint blazes or the worn path itself. Instead, we found only more rocks and scrub and fog. "Something's wrong," I said. "We should have reached it by now." Marcus checked his GPS again. His frown deepened. "According to this, we're on the trail. We're standing on it right now." I looked down, nothing but rock and lichen. "Maybe the map data is corrupted," he muttered. "Let's try following a bearing. If we head directly west, we'll hit the trail or the ridge or something." We tried that. Hiked for another hour, carefully maintaining our bearing with Marcus's compass. The fog never thinned, the terrain never changed. Just endless boulder fields and stunted vegetation, no matter which direction we walked. As darkness fell, we made camp in the lee of a large boulder. Marcus had a tent, enough food for a few days, a stove. I had emergency supplies, space blanket, energy bars, water filter. "We'll figure it out in the morning," Marcus said as we shared his instant noodles. "Weather has to clear eventually." But it didn't. Day 2 dawned, if you could call it dawn. The fog lightened slightly but never lifted. No sun, no shadows, just gray dimness that could have been any time of day. We hiked south, following compass bearings. Marcus's GPS continued showing us on or near the trail, but we never saw any trail features. No other hikers. No signs of civilization. "This doesn't make sense," I said as we stopped for water. "We're in one of the most popular hiking areas in New England. Even in fog, we should have crossed the trail or run into other hikers or found a trail junction." "I know," Marcus said quietly. He was staring at his GPS with an expression I couldn't read. "Lauren, I need to tell you something." "What?" "The date on my GPS, it says it's September 14th, 2019. I pulled out my phone. Mine says October 2nd, 2024. We looked at each other. "That's impossible," I said. "Everything about this is impossible." He gestured at the fog. "We've hiked, 10 miles since yesterday. In any direction from Mount Madison, we should have hit a road or a parking lot or another trail. But there's nothing. Like we're stuck in a bubble." A cold realization crept over me. "When did you summit Madison?" "Yesterday morning, September 13th, 2019. "I summited it yesterday morning too, October 1st, 2024. We stared at each other. "I don't understand," I whispered. Marcus's face had gone pale. I went missing. 5 years ago, there was a search party. They never found me. My wife, my kids, they think I'm dead. That can't be right. You're here, you're real. I grabbed his arm. Solid, warm, real. What if we're not in the White Mountains anymore? He said. What if when we couldn't find the trail, what if we left? Left where? We can't just leave reality. Then where are we? Neither of us had an answer. We kept hiking. I started marking our path with small cairns, 3 rocks stacked so we could track where we'd been. On day 4, we found one of my cairns. We'd been walking north for 3 hours, maintaining a steady bearing. But there it was, 3 rocks stacked on a flat boulder. My cairn. I recognized the specific rocks. We walked in a circle, Marcus said. That's impossible. We had a compass. We maintained bearing. Then the space itself is looped. He sat down heavily on the rocks. We're trapped. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. Every direction led back to where we'd started. The fog never changed. Our GPS showed us making progress, but physically we were stuck. Others must be trapped here too, I said. You and me, we summited 5 years apart, but both got lost in the same fog. There must be more. Marcus nodded slowly. We should look for them. So we called out as we hiked, shouted for other lost hikers, listened for responses. On day 6, we heard someone. A voice in the fog, distant and echoing, "Help, someone help me." We ran toward it, scrambling over boulders. The voice got louder, more desperate. "Please, I'm injured." We found a woman lying beside a boulder, her leg bent at a wrong angle. She was young, maybe mid-20s, wearing modern hiking gear. "Thank God," she gasped. "I fell. I think my leg is broken." Marcus immediately went to help, checking her injury with practiced efficiency. "I have first aid training, we'll splint it." As he worked, I introduced myself. "I'm Lauren, this is Marcus. We're lost too. When did you summit?" "Summit? I was just on the Gulfside Trail like 20 minutes ago. I was hiking to Mount Washington when this fog came in. I wandered off trail and fell." "What's the date?" Marcus asked quietly. "July 8th, 2016. My stomach dropped. The woman, her name was Kelly, looked between us. "Why does that matter?" "Because we're from different years," I said. "The fog isn't normal, it's collecting hikers, trapping us." Kelly's face went white. "That's insane. You got lost in impossible fog on a clear day. Your GPS works but doesn't show the trail. And you just happened to fall right where we could find you, even though we've been hiking for days and haven't seen another soul until now." I met her eyes. "Does that seem normal?" She had no answer. We splinted Kelly's leg and made camp. With 3 of us, survival was easier, pooled resources, shared knowledge, better morale. But we were still trapped. That night as Kelly slept, Marcus pulled me aside. "I've been thinking," he whispered, "about the pattern. We all got lost in fog on clear days. We all summited or were near the presidential range. And we're all from different times. So maybe the fog isn't random. Maybe it's specific. Maybe it takes hikers who are at a particular point, people who are alone, vulnerable at a critical moment." "What kind of critical moment?" He was quiet for a long time. "I was thinking about divorcing my wife when I summited Madison. That's why I was hiking alone. I needed to clear my head. I was standing at a crossroads in my life. I thought about my own situation. I'd been alone on the trail by choice. I'd quit my job 2 weeks before, ended a 5-year relationship, sold my apartment. I'd been hiking the presidential traverse as a way to figure out what came next in my life. I was at a crossroads too," I admitted. We woke Kelly and asked her. She cried as she told us she'd just been diagnosed with a chronic illness. She was hiking to prove to herself she was still capable, still strong, but terrified of what her future held. All 3 of us, all at crossroads, all alone with our uncertainty. "The fog takes people who are lost," Marcus said, literally and metaphorically. "Then how do we get unlost?" I asked. "We spent day 7 trying everything. Meditation, affirmation, talking through our feelings and fears, trying to find ourselves in the hope that it would let us find the trail. Nothing worked. The fog remained, the loop remained. By day 8, Kelly's injury was infected despite our care. She needed real medical help. We all needed food that was rapidly running out. We were trapped in purgatory and I couldn't see how to escape. That's when I made my decision. I'm going back, I told Marcus and Kelly. Back where? To the summit. To where I lost the trail. I stood up, shouldering my nearly empty pack. I made a choice up there. I got lost because I chose to keep.